All right, folks, we're going to do examples Rajul number 11. We're getting to some pretty complicated stuff now, so I'm going to need a little bit more room to work these out. So make sure that you're looking at the guidelines on the notes and make sure that you've got all of your identities ready so that you can follow along with this lecture. All right, so we're looking at this pretty complicated looking thing, and initially what stands out to me is sine of negative x. Sine of negative x becomes negative sine of x. So let's go ahead and do that basic simplification right now. That's negative sine of x over 2 tangent of x. And then we've got 1 over cosecant x minus 1 plus 1 over cosecant x plus 1. And you're going to see why I'm giving this a lot of room in just a second. Okay. Taking a look right here, it looks like we can simplify this fraction, these two fractions, into a single fraction. Whenever you can, combine two fractions into a single fraction because that's going to be one of the goals that you're going to have when you're working with simplifying expressions or solving identities. So we're going to take a look at this denominator and ask ourselves what's missing that this denominator has. Well, that left denominator looks like it's missing a cosecant x plus 1. So we're going to write cosecant x plus 1 on the bottom, and we're going to write cosecant of x plus 1 on the top. And the reason why we're doing that is because if you're multiplying by cosecant of x plus 1 over cosecant of x plus 1, that's a version of 1, and you can always multiply by a version of 1. Now we're going to take a look at this guy and ask ourselves what's missing there. And what's missing on this side is cosecant of x minus 1. So we're going to multiply by cosecant of x minus 1 times cosecant of x minus 1. All right. We're ready for our next step. Let's make that a little bit. I need to have a lot of room for this problem, so I want to make sure that I don't skimp on that. So let's write that left part out there, that negative sine of x over 2 tangent of x. And now we're going to simplify that fraction there. So the denominators are the same, so we can have one single fraction. So we're going to write that denominator down. Cosecant of x plus 1 times cosecant of x minus 1. And then on the top there, it looks like we've got 1 times this guy plus 1 times that guy right there. So that's going to be cosecant of x plus 1 plus cosecant of x minus 1 over that new denominator. Now we want to simplify that fraction even more because that's going to be a pretty easy fraction to simplify. Let's simplify the top first. We can see that that plus 1 and that minus 1 are going to go away. And we've got cosecant of x plus cosecant of x, which is 2 cosecant of x. So we have to write that left part down first. It's negative sine of x over 2 tangent of x. And then on the inside here, we've now got 2 cosecant of x. And let's take a look at that denominator. This is a plus b times a minus b, which of course becomes a squared minus b squared. A is cosecant of x, b is 1. So this becomes cosecant squared x minus 1. And you're going to find out that in a lot of these identities and a lot of these expressions that you're trying to simplify, you're going to get difference of squares, and that difference of squares is going to turn into Pythagorean identity. And in this case, this Pythagorean identity, cosecant squared x minus 1, becomes cotangent squared x. So that's what we're going to do in our very next step. Let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit so we've got a little bit more room. So we're going to get negative sine of x over 2 tangent of x times 2 cosecant of x over cotangent squared x. Let's go ahead and cross out those 2's real quick just to make our life a little bit easier. And now we've got something where we could change this whole thing into sines and cosines, but there's a better way to do this. So when all else fails, change things into sines and cosines. But if you can see another pattern, go ahead and use that pattern. And I can see on the top there that I do want to change my cosecant x into 1 over sine of x because that's going to eliminate this sine of x right here. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I've got negative sine of x times 1 over sine of x. Now let's take a look at those denominators. I've got a tangent of x, and I've got a cotangent squared of x. I happen to know that cotangent squared x and tangent x have a relationship Specifically, cotangent squared x is 1 over tangent squared x. That's again one of the identities that you should try to memorize. So I'm going to go ahead and change that as well. So that's tangent x times 1 over tangent squared x. All right, so these signs are going to cancel out, and it looks like this tangent x is going to cancel out with one of these tangents of x. Let's go ahead and shrink that down a little bit more. All right, so now this is going to become negative 1 over 1 over tangent of x. That 1 over tangent of x, of course, becomes cotangent of x. So this is negative 1 over cotangent of x. And 1 over cotangent of x is tangent of x, so this is negative tangent of x. So what I'm saying is negative tangent of x is equivalent to this thing that we started out way over here. This crazy looking expression right here turns into negative tangent of x. Let's make sure that we got that right on Desmos. So on Desmos, we've got that crazy expression. And then if we go down here, so here's our crazy expression that we've entered in, and that simplifies to tangent of x. And we can see that tangent of x covers up that entire graph, so we got that right.